word to describe it. Actually, you know what? Let's ask the star, because The Handmaid's Tale is coming back, and the star of the show, Elisabeth Moss, joins us. Hi, Elisabeth.
Hi, how are you guys?
Well, we're excited. We're excited for the new series to come back, but I've only just recovered from the last series. Elizabeth, my goodness.
Yeah, sorry about that. I know it was a little much.
Well, we recently, we're just kind of recovering from the end of Game of Thrones, and we saw all those images of Kit Harington in the script read. He's finding out for the first time how this is happening with tears in his eyes as he realizes. Do you have similar memories of the first time you read those scripts, whether it's at a round table reading and discovering the story as it's happening?
In a way, because I'm because I'm an executive producer on the show, I get it a little bit earlier than that, and we don't do table reads because we're on the road so much. So we don't have time for them, and we can't. It's hard for us to get the whole cast together. We're not in the studio that much, so I read the beat sheets, sort of way before the episodes come out, and then I get the, for the prep drafts. It's all very boring, I'm sure. It sounds terribly boring, but I get like the pre-production draft, and then I get the white draft, and so I kind of get it in a much. I know it's terribly boring.
I'm saying you're sick of it. By the time it gets to shooting, you're like, "Can we get on with this, please? I have read this 1,000 times."
Exactly. Exactly. By the time we shoot it, I'm fully over the episode.
Well, how would you describe the third season for people that are just frothing for this thing? And with,
like me?
Yes, like Ed and his wife. And there's been some kind of reviews floating around for people that have seen kind of early snippets. How would you describe what we're about to see?
For me, I mean, what we experienced as a production was, it's a much more complex season. It's a much bigger season. I think a lot of the things that we were dealing with, the relationships between the different characters, gets really complicated. It's not a black and white world. And so I think it's a very adventurous season. It's a big season. But at the same time, it's also just, it always comes down to these characters and the relationships between them on a much smaller scale. And they're complicated. There aren't easy answers for things. Unfortunately, it's not easy to lead a revolution, and it's not easy to lead a resistance. And I think that we kind of dive into the reasons why that's actually kind of a difficult thing to do.
Yeah. So speaking about the relationship between the characters, your relationship with your child in the show is so visceral. My wife and I have a boy who's almost 2, and I reckon we hug him triple as hard after we've watched an episode of Handmaid's Tale. Now, you're not I had to read this because I just assumed that you had a number of kids based on how real and visceral that honestly between you and that baby on the show feels. But you're not a mother as yet in life. How do you do that? How do you know what I mean? How do you find those feelings?
It's actually a really good question, and sometimes I wonder myself how I sort of connect to that. I don't really know. I mean, for me, I think that whether it's your brother, whether it's your own mother, whether it's a friend, you can connect to that idea of someone being more important to you than you are to yourself. Yeah. There's somebody that you would jump in front of a bullet for. There's somebody that their health, happiness, and survival you would put in front of anything else. And that I can identify with. Yeah, right. And that's, I don't sort of, I can't say without being a mother that I know exactly what that experience is like, but I do understand the experience of what I just described, and I do understand that kind of love. Yeah. And I find it a really noble and a really beautiful kind of love that I, for some reason, just really connect to.
Yeah, it's lovely.
You got to have a couple, Elisabeth. You got to get a couple going.
Well, he does that to me all the time. Because he loves his baby so much. He wants everyone to have one.
If and when I do have a baby, I'm going to hold on to that baby so tight.
Yeah.
Gosh, you will.
In my experience, it's difficult to hold on to them.
Oh, yeah, they're wriggly. So because you've got one. And they don't. And the problem with babies is, Elisabeth, they don't know what action and cut means, do they?
No,
they will poo on you if they want to. Who cares if we're filming a TV show?
They don't follow the script.
They're rude.
They're very selfish.
Even just watching the trailer for season 3, it's so powerful, this idea of a revolution and resistance. And in the current world that we're living in, I know a lot of people in America and here in Australia feel like we do need a revolution. So when you go into executive producing and acting in this thing, is it kind of even more of a responsibility to you to inspire people? I don't know if inspire people is the right word, but, it's crazy times we're living in. So do you feel that pressure?
I would say it's not so much pressure as something that we're inspired by, that we feel connected to with other people. And it's not so much, it's kind of an incredible byproduct that, that the show does inspire people. But for me, it's just more about connecting with humans, connecting with other people, connecting with people all around the world who have sort of, for whatever reason, feel that they have been in a similar situation, had a similar oppression, and have felt that they needed to resist or they needed to find their voice and stand up for themselves, whether it's on a small scale or a large political scale. And so I feel like for me, that's what inspires me, is just connecting on a very human level with other people. We want to tell the story. We want to tell this particular story of this particular handmaid. We always say it's not the story of Gilead. It's called The Handmaid's Tale. And so it is the story of one woman. And for me, what's important is I would say, true to that story, she's not a superhero. Yeah. She doesn't have any special powers. She's a human. She's a woman. She's a mother. She's a wife. She's also a girlfriend.
I was going to say, keep going.
Yeah. She's a best friend. She's a normal person. She is an every woman. And I think for me, that's inspiring, and that's what I get inspired by.
Well, it has been because, in those protests in Alabama about those draconian abortion laws that they're, bringing in, there were the protests, they were wearing the costume from your show. I mean, that tells you what an impact it's had.
Yeah, and that's incredibly, to say it's an honor to have any connection with a symbol that can represent the resistance and can represent equality and for so many people. That's not something that I invented. I have to give that one to Margaret Atwood. That's all her. But to have any part of it and be connected to that in any way, I'm incredibly, incredibly honored by.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Now, you've been on the TV for as long as kind of I can remember, really, with some of our favorite shows. The West Wing, Mad Men, Handmaid's Tale.
What a run.
It's ridiculous. And you've had such this huge profile, but you have managed to kind of do it in a way where you're not in gossip magazines and you're not kind of doing crazy stuff. And, you just talked about craving that real human connection, which I can imagine might be hard when you have that huge profile. So how have you managed to do it?
I don't know. I think I've always just approached my career as something that is my passion, that I'm very, very lucky to be able to do. I'm very, very lucky to be able to, have a job that I love, that I get paid for. That's not something that everybody has. So I don't actually, I don't consider myself that special to talk about in that kind of way, I consider myself, believe it or not, kind of a pretty normal person, and I value that, and I think I value that kind of being able to have a normal life. So I don't know, maybe it's that, maybe it's valuing that has kept me in a certain place. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just boring.
We've actually got Tiffany Haddish on the show next week, and I know you just worked with her alongside Melissa McCarthy as well. Is there anything that we should be dishing out on old mate Tiff? Because I know you've got the inside word now that you guys are mates.
Yeah. Ask her about this television show that we're developing called Purses.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Purses. I'll ask that. All right. What is this show that you and Elisabeth Moss are in development with called Purses? All right. We're gonna ask that. Excellent. That's great.
Ask her about that. Me, Melissa, and Tiffany are developing a show called Purses. So I feel like she can give you the download on that.
All right.
Sounds like a scoop to me.
That is an exclusive. Excellent work. Hey, where do you keep the Emmys? I love asking people this. You got 2 Emmys. Where do you keep them?
I have a shelf in my apartment in New York, and they're on the top of it because they're kind of tall, so they only fit on the top shelf. So
Specially made shelves for
I
your
love
Emmys.
that. I love that.
Did
'cause
you bring your Emmys to the shelf store when they said how high do you need them? You just pass them the Emmy and just
about
to
yay
fit
high.
that on, thanks.
no, this is just a store-bought shelf that I bought at West Elm. It's not custom made at all.
I love West Elm.
That's great.
Me too. I love West Elm.
I'm
I love
addicted.
West Elm. So yeah, no, it's just like a regular shelf that I bought, and they just happen to go on the top because they're on the taller side.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for your time, guys. Have a good day or evening or whatever.